All right, welcome to the Krueger Show, everybody. After not the most exciting baseball game, we're going to talk a little football right now. The great Matt Barrows in the house from The Athletic on the Pig and a Pickle Krueger Show, brought to you by Pig and a Pickle. Check them out in Corte Madera, open 7 days a week from 11 a.m. to 8 p.m. And they're also open in Emeryville, and they're in Emeryville Wednesday through Sunday. They're open in Emeryville. Check them out. Pig and a Pickle, the best barbecue in all of Northern California. And before we go anywhere, Fish and Chips, our brand new member, has joined us. We always give them a little clap. We do give them a nice little clap for being a member. But also, you know what? I decided we deserve a little bit more than just the clap. How about a little? There you go. A little cha-ching for Fish and Chips. So thank you, Fish and Chips, for becoming a YouTube member. All right, Maddie, good to see you. We want to talk a little 49ers. What an interesting week this has been for the 49ers as Kyle Shanahan, John Lynch, and Jed York all spoke this week from Arizona, the site of the owners' meetings. And let's get into Trey Lance, because I saw that you did a mailbag. And by the way, we put Maddie's mailbag link in to his article, his latest article, in the description of the show, so you can link directly from our show today to Matt's article in The Athletic, his mailbag. And one of the questions was about Trey Lance. Maddie, what do you make of all the Trey Lance chatter? Just to sum it up, John Lynch said at the combine, Trey's got to play, but that's the challenge. We got a team that's ready to go. And then Lynch this week at the owners' meeting said, we like Trey on our team right now. He threw that one in there. And then went on to say that Brock Purdy's the leader in the clubhouse as far as the competition for this job. And then Kyle Shanahan spoke as well. And he said Darnold and Lance will split reps this camp as far as number one reps. He also said he may ultimately go with two quarterbacks. And then, really insisted that they will probably listen to trade offers for a quarterback this spring, though they like their position, and then stated his love for Sam Darnold. And then Jed York took the mic in Arizona, and he said that has no regrets about drafting Lance, says he wouldn't change a thing if he could, and says that he still believes that Trey's got a chance to be great. So what do you make of all this Trey Lance chatter coming out of the 49ers from their three leaders?
Yeah, I mean, it's different than last year because last year everything was geared around. Remember, last year everybody thought that Jimmy Garoppolo was going to be moving on, and so everything was geared around propping up Trey Lance as the new starter. And I felt like John Lynch and Kyle Shanahan did that, and I thought that Trey Lance did a really nice job in the spring of sort of cementing that. He acted like the top quarterback. He acted like the leader on the team. And this year it's a little different. They're putting more pressure on him to sort of seize that role instead of sort of boost him up into that role. As far as the splitting reps with Sam Darnold in the spring, I would be surprised if it's 50-50. I'm not saying that Darnold doesn't get any first team reps, but Darnold's the newcomer here. And he doesn't know the offense. So I'm not sure if he's going to get a lot of first team reps. I think Trey Lance is going to get the lion's share of those, and be something to watch. We'll get to watch one OTA practice a week. That's what's open to the media. So there'll be a couple of other ones that aren't open to reporters, and I don't know. There could be some things going on there that we don't know about, but like I said, I'd be a little bit surprised if it's not Trey Lance getting, I'd say, the majority to vast majority of the first team reps.
Do you think that they will trade Trey Lance? Do you think that there's a deal brewing for Trey Lance this spring? It just seems there's an awful lot of conjecture out there. They seem like they've had opportunities to compliment him. They don't seem like they're in that mode. The only reason I even bring this up is because all these quotes are just so bizarre. And then for Shanahan to, tout Darnold the way he did, and then say at the end of the presser that, hey, I may go with two quarterbacks depending on how the league rules are written this year. I mean, it's bizarre. It just I mean, you've got Brock. You're saying he's the number one. You're professing your love for Darnold. You invested all this draft capital in Trey. What do you make of that? I mean, do you think something's brewing here, or what's your read on that?
No, I mean, if something were brewing, it would be the other way around. They'd be talking up Trey. It would be almost too gushing. That would be sort of the tip off. So yeah, I don't think anything's brewing. I don't think that they would get a big haul for him in return. I mean, I asked around the league, various agents. I said, what do you think the 49ers would get for Trey Lance if they traded him today? And it was all, third round pick, second round pick, day 2 pick with question mark after it. I don't think that they would get much at all for him. And then the other part of it, and the bigger part of it, is that this is a team that just went down to 0 quarterbacks in the biggest game that they played in 2022. They need numbers at that position. They're not in a position to trade away quarterbacks at this point. They need everybody. Their top quarterback, the guy that they're touting as their top quarterback, Brock Purdy, has an elbow injury, and he may or may not be back for the start of the regular season. So I would be very surprised if anything happened with Trey Lance this year. Next year is the more interesting year because conceivably Trey Lance could get the lion's share of the snaps in the offseason, play a lot in the preseason, maybe even start the season as the starter. It's possible Brock Purdy's on PUP or something like that. And so it's Trey's team early on, and he can kind of show these other teams that he's worth something. And then he would have conceivably 2 years left on his rookie deal, his 4th year, and then the 5th year option for teams to have an affordable quarterback that they can sort of evaluate. So, I think that is it's probably the leading scenario in the clubhouse. But if that's then, the next possible scenario isn't much, more far-fetched than that. I mean, there's so many different things that can happen to this team. So I don't know what's going to happen, but something happening now that doesn't seem right.
It does seem odd, especially since they, have a need at quarterback and they use so many this year, and they don't know about their starting quarterback. It does seem like an odd time to trade Trey Lance, but no more odd than, saying that Trey's on our team right now. No more odd than Sam Darnold being touted by the head coach, and no more odd than John Lynch making it seem like playing Trey Lance was kind of a challenge to the team when he's really the only quarterback that knows the offense that's healthy. Why would it be a challenge if they just, if they really believed in him? So the other thing that came up that I thought was kind of interesting, Jack Hammer brought this up, that he says that there's a pretty significant, cap penalty if you trade Trey this year. But there's also 4 quarterbacks are supposedly going to go in the top 7. And there's a bunch of teams that pick between 10 and 50 who, are going to have selections there that don't have a quarterback. And theoretically, they could decide that Trey Lance is a better player than Hendon Hooker, the quarterback they're looking at, the equivalent in the draft, and could offer that pick, anything from the mid first, I think, all the way down to the late second or maybe even the 3rd round. What, can the Niners maneuver if some team came to them and offered them a pick that they would take, let's say it was the 20th pick in the draft, the Commanders or one of these teams, could they maneuver around that cap hit and make that trade? Or is that cap hit so prohibitive, Maddie, that in and of itself would squash any potential deal?
You're putting me on the spot for cap hit. I forget what it is. I want to say 7 million, or it's between 7 and 10 million. So I think they're something like 5 million below the cap right now. This is before the draft, so they have to be able to fit all their draft picks under the cap. So yeah, they could. I mean, they still haven't restructured Christian McCaffrey. They could restructure, a couple more guys, Trent Williams again, George Kittle again. That's something that they don't want to do. But in your scenario, your scenario is interesting. I don't think it's going to happen. But this is a team that's looking for a tackle, and that's a big ticket item that they usually go into the draft to find, and they don't have a first round pick, and they don't have a second round pick. So they're relying on Colton McKivitz, a former fifth round pick. So that scenario where they would suddenly have this opportunity to take a right tackle, a guy that could be your right tackle for the next 5 years, the same sort of scenario with Mike McGlinchey, might be something that would interest them. I mean, if you ask me, okay, what would they do with that first round pick? That would be, I think, far and away the most likely scenario. They find the best tackle that they could find at that spot.
That's interesting because they obviously have a need there. D'Amico Ryans talked this week about Brock Purdy and was very complimentary. He said that, that Purdy had the it factor, and that's why the 49er defenders, that they saw that. They saw that he had that playmaking ability, that what he calls it factor. And that's why he won them over. And the quote was, he has something special to him, and that's why the players believe in him. In your mind, I mean, you're a guy who knows this team really well. Has the Niners locker room already decided in their mind who the number one quarterback is? Or do you think Trey has the ability to win them over?
Yeah, I mean, the 49ers said basically this week that the number one quarterback, if everybody was healthy, is Brock Purdy. I'm not exactly sure why that was shocking to anybody. I mean, the guy won his first 7 games. He was the story of the 2022 season. So that it shouldn't be surprising that people inside the locker room feel that way. I mean, they saw him deliver wins. But no, I don't think it would take a lot for Trey to win everybody over. I mean, they like Trey. I mean, but they were just blown away by Brock Purdy. Brock Purdy is, he should have been up for Rookie of the Year last year, given what he did. I mean, it's just special. I mean, and everybody wants to be binary with this and say, oh, if you're praising Brock Purdy, it means that you must hate Trey Lance.
Right.
It's not the case. I mean, Trey Lance is going to be good. Like I said, in that scenario where he starts the season, if he's winning games, they're going to be behind him 100%. And that really is the interesting scenario. A scenario in which Brock Purdy is not healthy to begin the season. Trey Lance starts the season, and Trey Lance does really well. Then what do the 49ers do if it's week 4 and all of a sudden the 49ers are 4-0, Trey Lance is looking really good, and Brock Purdy is healthy again? I doubt that they would insert Purdy right away. That hasn't been their MO in the past. So that to me is the most interesting scenario of all these what happens if scenarios that we could go over.
What do you think's the true measuring stick that they're going to go by? Wins or points?
Wins. If they're winning in spite of Trey Lance, then it won't be a difficult decision. But that usually doesn't happen in the NFL.
Really interesting story to me was when Ian Rappaport said this week that Sam Darnold is the likely week 1 starter. And the quote was, if Trey continues the trajectory that he's been on, then it's more than likely that Sam Darnold will be the week 1 starter. Okay. So who's whispering to Ian Rappaport? Is somebody whispering to Ian? I mean, does Ian know something that we don't know? He's a highly credible reporter. There's no question about it. It's totally unlike him to speculate. Why, if you were going to assume that one player would win the quarterback job over the other, wouldn't you assume that Trey Lance, who's, looked decent at times and has been in the system, would know the system better, wouldn't he be the guy that you would kind of be your, I don't know, your default week one starter? Wouldn't it be Trey and not Darnold? Instead, in his mind, it was Darnold and not Trey. And what do you think he's getting at there? It's like, I mean, if Trey continues the trajectory that he's been on, then it's more than likely that Darnold is the week one starter. What do you think he's getting at there?
Well, I think you need to get Ian Rappaport on
I know, I
to figure
do.
that out. But I agree with you. I mean, trajectory suggests that he's been slumping for a while now,
Right.
um, and he hasn't. I mean, he got hurt in the first quarter of week two, and that's his major red flag. It's not that he's been playing poorly at all. So I don't know what he's getting at. I mean, there does seem to be this national narrative that Trey Lance has been this colossal disappointment and
Right.
totally not worth what they gave up for him. And it has been disappointing, but it's not been because Trey Lance has been a bad quarterback or a bad leader, or he hasn't put the work in, or some sort of situation like they have in Arizona, where he's playing video games. He is really, really well respected inside the locker room. Gets along well with everybody. Is best friends on the team with Brock Purdy. Yeah, I don't know where that's coming from. And I agree with you. I think if you had to pick between the two of them, Darnold, who has been a colossal disappointment and
Right.
who has been on a bad trajectory, although we have to say that his last few games with the Panthers were the best of his career. That's the guy who's got the bad trajectory, not Trey Lance.
Yeah. I mean, if you said to me, put everything you own on Lance or Darnold to win that competition, I'm betting on Lance.
I'm betting on Lance too.
And Darnold's got some really ugly statistics, though. Were you shocked at all that how glowing Kyle Shanahan has been of Darnold? I mean, I've always liked Sam Darnold as a prospect, the way he throws. I mean, Shanahan doesn't throw around compliments very much at all, especially about the quarterbacks. And he was somewhat effusive in his praise of Darnold. And it's incredible when you consider what Darnold's resume actually looks like.
Yeah, I mean, I have to assume that Shanahan's going back to 2017, when the 49ers were doing quite a bit of quarterback work because they knew that they needed to bring in somebody in 2018 to lead the team. So ostensibly, he was looking at the Rosens, the Darnolds, the Josh Allens that year. And back then, everybody thought that Darnold was the pick of the litter. I mean, that's a really good quarterback class, and it's really telling how wrong people were in how they stacked them that year. And Darnold does have a really good arm, a really talented sort of live arm, probably better than Lance's and certainly better than Brock Purdy's. He just hasn't been able to put it together at this point. And I don't know if the processing speed is really good. I don't know. I have not studied him. I just know that he hasn't been as successful as everybody, including me. And I forget how you ranked them back in 2018. Going to be a really good class, where everybody thought that Darnold and Rosen were at the top, and then Allen and Lamar Jackson were sort of the mystery guys, so on and so forth. But
I like Baker. I thought of that group. I liked Baker. I just thought he threw the ball the best, had the moxie, and I really liked him. Never liked Darnold. I saw a bunch of Josh Allen in college. He just didn't look like a big time player to me. I thought Lamar was more of a kind of a backup type quarterback who would run around. I didn't see the greatness in Lamar. But didn't like Darnold. Darnold just turned the ball over an awful lot at USC, and he's continued to in the NFL. All right, how about this one? Which position or position group do you think do the Niners target with their first selections? They have 3 picks all kind of grouped together at the end of the 3rd round. Are they going to be going best player available, do you think? Do you think they're looking for an offensive tackle, a corner, an edge rusher? Is there a position of need that you think is primary compared to the others?
Yeah, I think offensive tackle is, and I think that they like Colton McKivitz, and I've actually heard them say that Colton McKivitz might be an upgrade over McGlinchey as far as pass blocking. I think they realize that he's not going to be any sort of upgrade in run blocking. That's something that McGlinchey really excelled at, and McKivitz is a guy that at one point A, they cut, and B, they thought was going to be a guard. So, moving in space isn't his forte, which is something that they want from their tackles. So I think tackle is going to be their priority. Tackles go quickly. There aren't a lot of tackles. The college game does not produce a lot of ready-made tackles. That's why I was saying earlier that if they had a first-round pick, that's where you use that, and then you don't worry about it for half a decade. The guy from BYU, Blake Freeland, jumps out to me for a lot of reasons. The movement skills, like I said, the fact that he's training or did train this early in the off season with Joe Staley in Southern California. I think that's always a benefit. Staley works these guys out like they would be playing for the 49ers. Lots of running, lots of movement. Exactly how Shanahan and Chris Furster want to coach them. So that's what I think. Tight end is going to be really interesting. Larry, I've been deep in the weeds at kicker. I've learned more about kicker this offseason than I ever have. And here's the bottom line with kicker. There are two guys who could get drafted at kicker. And there are at least, and there could be more, 6 teams that are thinking about drafting a kicker. So, the 49ers can't wait around to the 7th round. They would have to maybe use one of those 3 third-rounders if they wanted Jake Moody from Michigan, who's considered the top kicker in this draft.
The guy, Brad Graham is suggesting Chad Ryland from Maryland might be.
Yeah, he's the other guy.
He's a guy supposedly who's followed Brad, and Brad thinks maybe that's an indication, since he's so connected to the Niners, that maybe Chad Ryland could be coming to them. Ryland is expected to be an undrafted free agent. You mentioned Jake Moody. A lot of people think Moody's going to be like a 6th or 7th round pick. What do you know about Ryland? Anything?
Yeah, I do. I just talked to somebody who rated them pretty closely, actually. Moody certainly is a bigger name because he kicked at Michigan. Ryland mostly kicked at Eastern Michigan, and then spent this last season at Maryland. They're very similar in terms of leg strength. Something that's important to the 49ers is that if they drafted a kicker, that kicker has to be able to handle kickoffs because Mitch Wishnowsky doesn't do that very well, and it affects his punting. So, and both of those guys can do that. And both of them, this is big. I mean, both of them kicked in really nasty weather. Ryland at Eastern Michigan, Moody at the Big House in Ann Arbor, in big pressure situations for Moody. So, it's beauty's in the eye of the beholder there. Those two guys are likely to be drafted. And the question in my mind is, with all, six teams looking to draft a kicker is more than usual. And so it becomes a supply and demand issue. And you got to wonder if a team is going to take a kicker a little earlier than in a typical draft because they know that other teams are also looking for that kicker.
Is there a quarterback out there that you think the 49ers may have interest in on day 3 or after the draft? They looked at Bonner from Utah State. John Lynch was right there on Stanford's pro day for Tanner McKee, who's maybe going to be a day 3 pick. They've already had a meeting with DTR from UCLA. Is there a quarterback that you think that you got a pretty good handle that they may like?
This is just a guess, just based on who they've drafted in the past. But O'Donnell at Purdue is going to be a late round guy, and he played in the Big Ten in a kind of a pro-based offense. He's got a quick release. He's played a lot of games. I know Iowa State isn't in the Big Ten, but going back to CJ Beathard in what was that, 2017?
Yeah.
There's some similarities there. So he's a guy that sort of has struck me as a possibility, and we've talked about Hainer at Fresno State. He's probably the best comp to Purdy in this draft, but that could mean that Hainer gets picked a lot earlier than the 7th round if people really believe that. I think Brock Purdy is going to make some kind of middling guys a lot of money this year.
Yeah, there's no question. If you're a 6-foot quarterback who has really good college film, man, you every night you say, thank God for Brock Purdy.
Exactly. Yeah.
Brock Purdy's the reason.
You send Brock Purdy maybe 10% because Brock Purdy is not making a lot of money this year.
Right. Not only that, Brock Purdy makes so little money. I saw that he doesn't even count against the Niners cap.
Yes. Isn't that funny?
That? That's wild.
He could be a 17-game starter for a team with Super Bowl aspirations, and he doesn't even count against their cap.
Exactly. Oklahoma's tight end. A couple last ones before we let you go. Oklahoma's tight end. Oklahoma had their pro day on Thursday morning. Braden Willis is their tight end. He's 6'3", he's 240 pounds. He's a movement tight end. He says that he met the Niners at the combine, but I guess they also attended his pro day. He said it went great. I love them. They love me. There might be a relationship there to come, but we'll just have to wait and see. I don't think he was trying to rap or rhyme there, but he did. But what do you think? Tight end wise, where do you think, Kittle's a do everything tight end. So if you said, whoa, they need a complimentary tight end. Well, they also have Dwelly, who's a receiver, Werner, who's kind of a blocker. If you said they were looking for a tight end, are they looking for a Braden Willis movement tight end, Elijah Higgins, converted wide receiver from Stanford type, a movement guy who can really run? Or do you think they're looking for that, that big hulking, we're going to run the ball and we want another, almost like an offensive lineman at tight end? What kind of tight end do you think they're looking for?
The guy that they're missing right now, what Croft did last year, Tyler Croft, was basically their number 2 tight end. He was an inline guy. He was a 6th offensive lineman. So somebody who can block is paramount. There are a couple. Obviously, getting a Kittle type, somebody who can do a little bit of everything, would be perfect. And there are 2 guys, Brian Laporta, who played at Iowa, and who I'm sure Kittle is gunning for. And then Tucker Kraft, who played at South Dakota State.
Yeah.
Both of these guys are big athletic guys who blocked a lot in college and would be really great, A, compliments to George Kittle, B, replacements for George Kittle if George Kittle gets injured. And then, if George Kittle, leaves the 49ers at some point, they take over. They have the ability to be number 1 guys. The issue with both of those guys is that they're probably going to get drafted in the 3rd round, but early in the 3rd round. So that would be ideal. The best, guy who's sort of in their range in that regard, I think, is the Purdue tight end.
Payne Durham.
Yeah, Payne Durham. And then Schoonmaker at Michigan, I think that his combine was so good that now he's sort of in that earlier 3rd round position as well. A guy who's like the guy that you just mentioned from Oklahoma is Brenton Strange from Penn State. He's really interesting because he's, I think, big enough to play in line. He did a lot of blocking. He's from Penn State, but he also did a lot of H-back. He did some fullback. He did some wide receiver, some slot stuff. So he's got the maneuverability, I think, to play a little bit of everywhere. He's a guy that I might circle as a potential guy that they would take with one of those last 3rd round picks.
Last question here for you. Israel Abanaconda, who's is a Pittsburgh running back who they met with. This guy was really good. He was all ACC. You're talking about a guy who, at the Pitt Pro Day, he ran 4.34. He's a 2-time 100-meter champion in the New York Mayor's Cup race. but 41-inch vertical, 10.8 broad jump, and 4.3 40. And he's not small. I think he's 200 and something pounds. He's not like one of these 5'6", 180-pound guys. How much do you think like a dynamic running back? Yeah, I know they've got McCaffrey and I know they've got Elijah Mitchell, and heck, we didn't even get a chance to see TDP or JP Mason, but they don't have Mostert. They don't have that running back that can get to the edge at will. How much do you think Kyle Shanahan wants, just one more speed element in the backfield? Because the guy that I love is Keaton Mitchell from East Carolina, but this Israel Abanikanda, and that's how you pronounce it, Abanikanda, is a burner. I mean, if you watch his film, he's really exciting. How much are they looking for a speed back to round out their running back room, you think?
I mean, they're always looking for, I think that Kyle Shanahan loves running backs. I mean, that's why they took 2 in the 3rd round in the last couple of years. But if I had to guess, I'd say that that's not on their radar because of the guys that they brought in last year that who they really like. And I know Ty Davis Price, the fan base is down on him because he didn't play a lot in year 1, but I can assure you that the 49ers are still very high on him. It seems like that position group is full now, but as soon as we say that, they'll have a string of injuries and the cup will be bare. But I mean, if I'm the 49ers, I rely on Bobby Turner and everyone else on that staff to bring in somebody good after the draft. And we know from experience that there's going to be good players who aren't drafted. But Larry, I wanted to ask you, are you going to go to Sacramento tomorrow to watch your guy, Marte Mapu? Because
yes, I'm thinking about going.
He tore his pec. I didn't know this. He tore his pectoral muscle about a month ago and isn't going to work out at all. So before you get in the car,
maybe that might impact my Mapu, deal. But I'll say this: I love that player. I really like him. I mean, he kind of reminds me a lot of Talanoa Hufanga, and I could see them wanting him as a coverage linebacker, a special teamer. They kind of like the undersized guys. Aziz is gone. They promote Marcelino, and maybe Mapu could take Marcelino's spot. The fact that he tore the pec, I think he was slated, Maddie, as like a late 6th, early 7th round guy. They may be able to get him as an undrafted free agent to just sign on and come to camp if he's going to miss any length of any, significant amount of time. Probably takes him from a late day 3 guy to an undrafted guy. And that kid can really play. I mean, he is a tremendous cover player and tremendous instincts. So I'm amazed. I thought Hufanga had good instincts, but Mapu's got, his coverage is so tight that I think he's a real special difference maker. That being said, on your way out here, it's March 30th. Tease what you got going on the Athletic this week and for the next couple of weeks, but also, are we getting close to the Barrows draft crush? When does the revelation of the draft crush officially come out? When can we look for that?
Probably in a few more weeks. I mean, I want people to really start thinking about the draft, and we're still in March at this point. So that
are you honing in? I mean, do you have it? Are you whittling it down? Or are you still looking?
Oh, I'm whittling.
You are whittling.
Larry, I mean, it's tough this year because the first pick isn't until pick 99. So it's not like you could go with a guy who just, jumps off the screen to you, because those guys are all going to be taken in the first 3 rounds. We're talking almost 4th round here. So it's a greater degree of difficulty here. So I'm trying to find somebody. I mean,
can I throw a suggestion? Can I throw one suggestion?
Yeah. Well,
a guy for you to look at
before we go on from your guy at Sacramento State, Mapu.
Yeah, who's also good.
I heard that teams are looking at him as a Fred Warner type of guy,
right?
A guy who wasn't a traditional linebacker in college like Warner wasn't, but who's got the frame. I mean, Mapu is like 6'2", and he's got long arms and long legs, and he moves really well sideline to sideline. And teams are looking at him as a will linebacker, a guy who can get up to 225 pretty easily, and still be able to move like he does and cover. Cover is the key, and you want that guy sort of doing exactly what the 49ers do with their linebackers, just eating up space and taking away chunks of the field. So he's a great guy. He's in the running for draft crush for sure. I mean, he's just so intriguing and such a sort of new or type of player that's becoming in vogue, I think, in the NFL, and may not have been 10 years ago, but certainly is more popular these days.
It is amazing, really, since you've been covering the team, you've seen the linebacking transition from where, hey, you know what? If you're 225, you're too small, to now, if you're 225, you're right there with what the Niners are looking for. They're looking for 220, 225, good coverage ability, playmaker instincts, and Mapu in a lot of ways, kind of checks all those boxes. The guy, though, that you got to take a look at. Now, I love Keaton Mitchell from East Carolina, and I just think he's amazing. Antonio Sosa says Keaton Mitchell would fit perfectly. The timing was incredible on that chat.
Yeah,
no,
nice.
But
he set that up.
Yeah, Stephon, a guy that I saw in the HBCU All-Star game. His name he's a linebacker. I think he plays for Fort Valley State. His name's Stephon Pierre. All right.
Sounds French.
Stephon Pierre. And I saw an interview he did. He said, I was raised in a tiny little town on the Georgia-Florida border out in the middle of a rural area. He's like, we didn't have anything. My mom raised us. This guy is unbelievable athlete. Another same kind of thing, Matty, 225-pound linebacker, but just an incredible player, like an Aziz Al-Shair kind of production, like what Aziz did in college, where he made 400 and something tackles. This guy's like that. He makes 150 tackles a year. He's incredible. I saw him in this All-Star game. He broke down in space like 5 times against athletic-looking players and just brought them to the ground. 4 of them were solo. His numbers, I went and looked him up. I mean, Fort Valley State or whatever he went to. But Stephon Pierre, check him out. Tell me what you think of him. I don't know. To me, it's like somebody's going to draft that guy and get a steal.
Is this the annual Krug crush that you're gonna?
I do like this guy a lot. I mean, it's like it's like this guy's so good and so off the radar that I have to keep like double checking. Did he declare? Did he maybe go back to school? Because he's like, he's not in any mock draft. He's not in anybody's list. I haven't seen him anywhere.
Did he play in any college all-star games? Oh,
he played in the HBCU game, which it was on the NFL Network, and he was good. He was incredible in that game. But he's an undersized linebacker, but he's like one of these guys that's so athletic and so fast, so instinctive, so pure that I think he's an absolute lock to play in the NFL. So we'll see. Stephon Pierre, check him out. All right, Maddie, great stuff. And what are you teasing for the week? You've got a bunch. You and Lombardi just kill it on the Athletic. I'm on the list of people paying for the Athletic now. What are we looking at? What are you guys combining for this week?
Well, I mean, like I said, I've been deep in the kicker weeds, so I'm going to have my big kicker expose come out probably early next week. That'll sort of just kind of set the table for, which teams are looking at kickers and the kickers who could go in the draft. And the 49ers definitely are doing work on these guys. And then the other story I've got coming up is really interesting. Your guy, Vernon Davis, has really jumped 2 feet into an acting career. And,
good for him.
He's in a recent movie that's come out. He plays opposite Morgan Freeman.
Wow.
Yeah, Vernon Davis, of all people. And so I talked to Vernon recently and talked about that role and what he did to prepare for that role. And it's really kind of fascinating. And this movie, by the way, has just gotten terrible reviews. But the reviews all say something like, the only reason to watch this movie is Vernon Davis, of all people, which is not what I was expecting. when Vernon Davis gets the acclaim ahead of Morgan Freeman. But so that's coming out, and I think that's going to be a really kind of interesting one, fun one to read.
Well, Vernon is a Renaissance man.
He is.
When he came out of Maryland, I read a long piece on him, how he was fascinated by sculpting, and he had a sculpted physique, but he also was a sculptor, and he's just got an artistic side. He's got a lot of eclectic interests, and some guys are only football. That's not Vernon. Football is just an aspect of Vernon. So that's really interesting. I'm happy for him, because sometimes, these guys have to find a second career sometimes, even guys who are good players, and, whether they need the money or not, sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. He may not need the money necessarily, but you need to find some other passion and interest to fill your time and make life enjoyable. And not every guy can find that after football. And I'm happy that Vernon could find something that he really enjoys, he can throw himself into. That's very cool.
He is not half-assing this at all. I mean, he's really put 100% of himself into becoming an actor. And, at age, I forget what he was when he started doing it, 38. That's not easy to do. And, he's been in something like 17 movies. It's incredible. And he's in another one with Morgan Freeman coming up.
I need you to drop a line to him. Just be like, instead of saying, "I want winners," say, "I want actors." See if he laughs. Maybe he won't laugh.
That'd be good.
Matty, great stuff, man. Have a great rest of your day. Thanks
for
your
time.
All
right, you too. Thanks,
everybody.
Larry.
Read Matty in The Athletic, as good as it gets, covering the Niners. Right there, Matt Barrows. Almost called him Matt Singletary. Matt Barrows, as good a Niner beat writer as there is. All right, we got a bunch of people in the chat. We're going to mention some of their chats coming up next. But first, we need to tell you we're brought to you by Pig in a Pickle. Check them out in Corte Madera and in Emeryville. Pig in a Pickle, the best barbecue in all of Northern California. Great location, killer brisket, unbelievable brisket chili. If you're looking for them in Emeryville, they're right there in the Emeryville Public Marketplace. If you're checking them out in Corte Madera, they're open from 11 a.m. to 8 p.m., 7 days a week. And if you're walking through that mall in Corte Madera and you say, "What does it look like?" It looks like this.
So New York style sausage was started over 70 years ago. We are the largest producer of fresh Italian sausage on the West Coast.
What makes our sausage in New York style is really the recipe came from back east, from New York, from Connecticut.
If you look at all of our labels, there's maximum 4 or 5 ingredients, which we're really proud of.
There's no preservatives, no MSG, fresh in, fresh out.
The pork comes in fresh, goes out fresh. There's never any freezing throughout the process. We've always used fine quality cuts. We're never gonna deter from that. It's one of the reasons why our sausage is so good. I guarantee you put our sausage up against anybody else's from a flavor standpoint, no one will beat it, hands down.
Hey, do yourself a favor and do me a favor. Go buy a package of the New York style Italian sausage. Guaranteed you will love it, guaranteed.
All right, welcome back to the Krueger Show. Thanks to Matt Barrows for joining us. Now let's hit the chat and see what people have to say in the chat. Antonio Sosa says, yes, Marte Mapu might go undrafted. Wow. Wow. He's a hell of a football player. Third string all pro says Anthony Richardson in his pro day threw 75 yards in the air, allegedly. He's so special. As far as athletic ability, that would be the guy I'd have a hard time passing on. He's 6'4", 230 with an absolute rocket, and he's very fast. So, I mean, this might be the greatest skill set we've ever seen on a quarterback. Gregis Khan, Mapu will come to the Niners as an undrafted free agent. I don't know. The way Matt was talking about it, it sounds like he might actually get drafted. We got this one from Gammon Brown. He says, at Matt Barrows, but Gammon, this was not a question. He says, recent shift to bigger backs and less emphasis on the outside zone and more focus towards inside zone gap is from cut block rule change. I think it really has to do more with the personnel that they've had. I think you're going to see the 49ers. They're sniffing around some speed-related backs, and you're not going to try to run to the edges if you don't have the speed to get to the edges. When you had Raheem Mostert, you could get to the edge at will. And when you don't have that kind of speed, you don't have, if you're a really good football coach, you coach to the skill set of your team. So you adjust to your personnel. You don't make your personnel adjust to you. You have Larry Zonka. You're not going to say, we're running outside zone. You're going to hand it off and run it between the tackles. If you got Emmitt Smith, you're going to run it between the tackles. If you have Ricky Waters, you're going to throw it to him out of the backfield. And in this case, if you have Christian McCaffrey, you're going to use him and throw it to him a lot out of the backfield and use him as a receiver quite a bit. If you have Elijah Mitchell, that you're going to run a little bit to the outside, but for the most part, his strength is at his ability to pick and slide between the tackles. JP Mason runs kind of like a Marshawn Lynch. So there's no question that, for JP Mason, you're going to try to run it a little bit more gap scheme, a little bit more power. You're going to run a little bit more between the tackles and maybe a little bit more inside zone. Same with Ty Davis Price. But if you can find that Keaton Mitchell, if you can find that Israel Abanaconda, who runs 4.3, then you're talking about running to the edges, getting to the edges and trying to run that outside zone. And I kind of think that Shanahan likes that outside zone, wants to have that back with speed. I mean, think about it. The Niners don't need a running back. JP Mason, Ty Davis Price, Elijah Mitchell, Christian McCaffrey. They've got a lot of backs. Kyle Juszczyk, but they're still sniffing around on some outside speed backs. And I think that's what they're looking for. In fact, Kieran Pettiford said, Pettiford said, at Gammon, we still need a back with speed burst. It's a great change of pace. So, yeah, I don't think it's a philosophical change. I think it has to do a lot more with just their personnel. If they had a Mostert, they'd run to the edges. They'd go outside zone. And they may not feature it, but they would utilize it. But without that kind of player, it's like banging your head against the wall trying to run to the outside. Robin Pratt says Matt Williams has colon cancer. Is that true? Oh, no. Maddie, the big Marine. Oh, that's so sad. Our thoughts and prayers go out to Maddie for sure. Nail the like button, hit the like and subscribe button. If you hit like, that helps the algorithm have more people find the shows. And then if you hit subscribe, of course, that will give you an alert. Every time we go live, you'll get an alert on your phone if you hit that notification bell that we're going live, and so you won't miss any episodes of the Krueger Show. So hit the like, hit the subscribe, and then, of course, if you want to be a channel member, feel free to sign up to be a channel member. We love all of our channel members. It's like $4.99 a month to be a channel member for exclusive content. Fish and Chips said Vernon loved the arts. Yeah, he absolutely did. He absolutely loved the arts. You know, some guys are just football players. Some guys are so much more, and he was one of those so much more. Dr. Leon Ross Jenkins says the national media needs clicks, so they put out BS narratives to create stories, referring probably to the Ian Rappaport story. But still, it is very odd that he would like if you told me Ian Rappaport or Ian Rappaport, if you told me Ian Rappaport was trying to be a Niner quarterback, I would say he would lose. No, but if you were telling me that Sam Darnold was going to compete against Trey Lance for a quarterback job, I don't care if it's the starting job or the backup job or the number 3 job. I'm going with Trey Lance to win that competition over Sam Darnold. And so I thought it was odd that Rappaport would report that if Trey continues the trajectory that he's been on, and I'm sure if you pushed back on Rappaport, he could say, oh, well, I just mean he's been injured a lot. So if he's continued to be injured, well, yeah. So if Trey's injured, then, and it's not like Trey had a chronic injury. He got hurt running between the tackles, somewhat of a freakish injury. But if he continues the trajectory that he's been on, then it's more than likely that Sam Darnold will be the week 1 starter. So my immediate question is somebody whispering to Ian Rappaport that Trey Lance has been unimpressive, or that Trey Lance, there's something that Trey's not doing that puts him on this trajectory that doesn't line up with him becoming the starting quarterback? It just seems very weird that when you look at Trey and you think of everything the Niners have invested to get Trey, and then you think of Darnold and how he's failed in 2 spots and how he has some of the NFL's worst statistics. But Rappaport would say that if, to me, it seems like if Darnold continues on the trajectory that he's on, then it's Trey's job to lose. That to me makes sense because Darnold has a negative trajectory. He's had negative production in 55 starts. But instead, you're going to say that about a guy who has 4 career starts? Seems weird, very, very weird. So I asked Maddie if Ian Rappaport knew something that we don't. And he did find that odd as well. So I thought that I'm glad that I brought it up to him because that was weird. Artur says 3 likes in a chat with almost 300 people. Come on, guys, help Krueger out. Hit like and subscribe. It will absolutely help it out. Gammon Brown says, read my super chat and I'll hit the like button and recommend your show to fellow soldiers. All right. I appreciate that. Antonio Sosa says, Stephon Pierre, another Lee Woodall steal. Yeah, you know what? If you even type in Stephon Pierre on YouTube, I don't think you're going to find much. I mean, it's really hard to find highlights of this guy. I saw a couple different highlights that I thought were really impressive. Then I saw an interview of him, and I was impressed by the interview. Then I watched him in the HBCU college all-star game, which was right around, I guess, mid-January. And he really stood out. I mean, this guy's making plays against the run. He's making plays against the pass. He's 215 to 218 pounds, but he's flying all over the field. I mean, all over the field. Val Ramos says, Gammon, he will get to it. Don't worry, my guy. Now Gammon's, Krug, please refund my super chat. My question was for Matt Barrows. Gammon, it wasn't a question. It was a statement. I apologize. I didn't realize it was a question only for Matt Barrows, but there was no question mark there. Otherwise I would have read it when Matt was here. Fish and Chips saying Gammon is going all military on Larry. Yeah, there we go. 3rd string all pro bamboozled. Such a great word. Bamboozled. Hoodwinked. Gregis Khan says hoodwinked. Val Ramos, Larry, you lazy, Larry. Sargon says, Larry, why don't you offer your guest a box of Cuban cigars? He's on fire in fuego. If I had some Cuban cigars, I would smoke them myself. I'm not giving them to Barrows. I'm keeping them for myself. Fish and Chips is 3rd string all pro, worth a lot in Scrabble. Gammon says, no, I'm not mad. I just prefer that he not read them and answer them as the questions were for Matt, his guest, and not for him. No hard feelings. No hard feelings. You're asking Matt hardcore questions about football. I'm the one who scouted, and he's the writer. But go ahead. Whatever. Val Ramos, Larry, you forgot a super chat, did I? Wait, I got one. There's more coming. I'm not done. I don't think I missed. Maybe he's referring to Gammons. Sometimes let me see here. My goal is to never miss, because I know if somebody takes the time and makes a donation to the show, they want their question asked or they want their comment read. I totally get it, and I'm with you. So I'm not here to miss anybody's super chat at all at any point. And if I got to go back through it, I absolutely will. Gregus Khan says Mostert had that rare ability to cut without slowing down. Yeah. There's no question. Mostert I call it full speed cuts. Great one, 765 says Deneric Prince. It's so funny. Great one. I just was watching Tulsa film 2 nights ago. I didn't watch Tulsa this year, and I did not see this running back, Deneric Prince, and he's impressive. He really is impressive. If anybody gets a chance and has the time and cares, Deneric Prince, running back from Tulsa, really exciting player. Very exciting. Very athletic. Gammon Brown. Oh my God, Larry, please. You cannot be that simple-minded. They changed their personnel because rules changed. No. That's not why they changed their believe me, they're going to add speed at running back, and they're going to run outside zone. But I will ask Matt next time. I will ask Matt. Bomber T says Larry is the man. Fish and Chips says Larry, drop and do 20 push-ups. Thank you. Gregus Khan. It fatigues defenses when they have to run sideline to sideline like that to defend the outside zone. Yeah. I mean, also, if you can get guys, I mean, offensive football is about creating space. Defensive football is about closing that space down. If you don't run to the edges, they don't feel like they need to defend the edges. It's like the same reason that you got to have a Danny Gray, because you got to have somebody who takes the top off the defense. You got to have somebody that makes DBs at least think twice that you're going to throw it over the top of their head. If the DB thinks that you're never going to throw it over the top of their head, everybody's leaning forward. Everything's geared towards, attacking underneath. But if you can show that you can run by a defense, that makes them pause. And that means you put Danny Gray. That's what I'm so excited about the Niners with Danny Gray and Ray McLeod. They've got 2 guys that can really threaten down the field, and that will open things up. And I want to see more of Danny Gray this year. I don't care who's at quarterback. I want to see more of Danny Gray, because if you can throw Danny Gray out there, man, the field is going to be so open for Ayuk, for Debo, for Kittle, for McCaffrey, for the run game. But it's all about threatening deep and connecting on a few. I mean, that's the one thing that we got from Trey Lance at the beginning of the year in the preseason that was so exciting, is that when you have a guy that has Trey's kind of arm and you have a receiver that has Gray's kind of speed, I mean, Trey could go up top at any point. And the way he threw that deep ball to Gray, where he just dropped it in the bucket, kind of reminded me of like a young Russell Wilson. I mean, just absolute dime, flat dime. To me, that's you say, what's the most exciting thing about Trey? It's that he's got the explosive ability to buy himself extra time in the pocket, but he also has the courage to keep his eyes peeled downfield and not stare down the rush. And then he has an ability to throw with touch deep. And that is, I think, going to be what makes him special. I think he can drop it in the bucket from 40, 50 yards away. Now, you don't make those plays all the time, and you still got to hit the layups, and that's going to be his challenge. He's got to hit the layups. He's got to hit the 5-yard out, the back in the flat, the slant, all the stuff around the line of scrimmage, all the short game where your footwork and your technique and your release and everything about your mechanics is just hugely important because it just affects everything. I mean, the one thing that was so impressive about Brock Purdy was how well he operated the quick game. His footwork was on point. His release was on time. He's not early. He's not late. That's what was really impressive. And I think that's the stuff that won over the defense. That's the stuff that won over the coaches. That's the stuff that made Shanahan go, wow, this guy. Because everything's on time, but the footwork and the mechanics and all of that is totally magnified in the short game. One misstep takes you off your timing. And his footwork and his release and his timing on the short game was impeccable. And most rookie quarterbacks have nothing like that. They're nowhere close to have mastered that. And Purdy made that look like he'd been doing it for years. Like he was literally like a 5 or 6 year veteran. I think that's what made me go, wow, this guy can really do it. The short game is key in Kyle's offense. Michael Alanes says, out of Latu, Braden Willis, Tucker Kraft, Strange, Laporta, who do you like to complement Kittle? Well, I've watched all those guys. I kind of like Tucker Kraft. I mean, Laporta's nice, but Laporta, I think, is being overvalued based on the Iowa connection. I don't think he is Kittle. I don't think he's TJ Hawkinson. You know what I'm saying? I think he's being thrown a little higher on the list. I had Laporta around 100, 120, and I've seen lists where he's like 75, 85. So, and that's because of the success of the Iowa tight ends. If you said if you're asking me of those tight ends, I like Tucker Kraft from South Dakota State. There's a lot to like. I mean, really a lot to like there. Tucker Kraft's a really solid football player. Good ball skills, good size, good height, nice catch radius, understands how to sit in the soft spots in the zone, plucks the ball out of the air with his hands. He does a lot of things that you like, that you want to see. The guy who I think is going to be the first tight end, I thought it was going to be Michael Mayer, who I'm a huge fan of, but I think it's going to be Darnell Washington. Darnell Washington, 6'6", 265, great hands. His workouts have been special. Supposedly he looked great at Georgia's Pro Day. So Darnell Washington may be the first tight end off the board, but this is a stellar tight end class. Dalton Kincaid, Luke Musgrave from Oregon State's a great athlete. Sam Laporta, Tucker Kraft, the kid Zach Kuntz from Old Dominion, who's 6'8". He's really a nice player. Like him a lot. I like Payne Durham a lot from Purdue. I asked Jordan Elliott the other day who's his favorite tight end in the group, and he likes Davis Allen from Clemson. A lot of people like Will Mallory from Miami. Maddie mentioned Brenton Strange, who's a 6'3", 260-pound tight end from Penn State. Good movement player. Elijah Higgins, the Stanford wide receiver, is never played tight end. A lot of people feel like he's got movement tight end ability. Braden Willis, I think, could be a really nice day 3 pick. 7th round pick out of Oklahoma as a movement tight end. I think he's on that list for sure. I mean, there's a bunch of people on this list for sure. Schoonmaker is really interesting from Michigan because he went to the Michigan Pro Day and he had such phenomenal workouts, and then he's got a frame to add weight. I think most people look at Schoonmaker at 6'6", 250 and say he could be 265. And he's really explosive at that weight. He had an excellent 3-cone drill. So that kind of tests your agility. He's a strong inline blocker. And I think Harbaugh and the Wolverines just underutilized him as a receiver. I think there's a lot more talent there. This happens in the Big Ten. George Kittle didn't touch the ball hardly at all. He hardly was a factor as a receiver at Iowa. And obviously he's a hell of a receiver. I mean, then he goes to the combine, he ran 4.5, and people are like, well, wait a second. That's amazing. Gammon Brown says, okay, Larry. So a football family that has run the same scheme for 30 plus years has now suddenly changed once a rule was changed. Come on, my guy. First of all, Mike Shanahan did not just run the outside zone. He ran the inside zone as well. Terrell Davis didn't just run the outside zone. They ran inside zone. They ran gap. They ran power. And Shanahan has run all that as well. But ultimately, it's hardly like some revelation to say that you scheme your offense based on your talent. You often scheme your offense based on your talents. So I think, you're looking at this from a very small sample size. Take a look in this draft if they draft a running back with speed and if they use that running back to get to the edges. Heck, they were times this year. I know in the Washington game, they used Ray McLeod on a run play. They lined him up in the backfield and he ran the outside zone, got to the edge and was gone for like a 71-yard run. But Ray's a receiver and they didn't have a back who could get to the perimeter at will. And so they didn't do it a lot. But I think if they got that back, they would do it a lot. And that's my belief. We got this one about Brandon Ayuk. Val Ramos, Larry, if the offer is great for Brandon Ayuk, will they make a trade for Brandon Ayuk? I don't think so. I don't believe that. I don't think there's anything there. I know there's a lot of people speculating on Brandon Ayuk being traded. I don't think he's going to be traded. And if he was traded, I think I would definitely want a first round pick. Why? Because he would be a first round wide receiver. He might be. I actually would rather have Brandon Ayuk than any receiver in this draft. I mean, I like Addison quite a bit. The SC kid, the Pitt transfer, like him a lot. But and I like some of the slot receivers, Zay Flowers from BC and Jaden Reed from Michigan State, Demario Douglas from Liberty, the super burner Darius Davis from TCU, just absolutely flies. But like, if you look at those are the slot receivers. If you look at the other receivers, Quentin Johnson from TCU, he's got build-up speed. I didn't see him separating. I'd much rather have Ayuk. Jackson Smith Nigba is a tremendous player. He might be the one receiver I'd rather have, but I still think I'd rather lean towards Ayuk. He's stronger, bigger. Jordan Addison, good football player. I'd rather have Ayuk. And then the rest of the list, there's no doubt. Josh Downs, Jalen Hyatt, Stanford's Michael Wilson, Kayshon Boutte from LSU, Cedric Tillman from Tennessee. I'm a Jonathan Mingo fan from Ole Miss. Ronnie Bell from Michigan, Bryce Ford Wheaton, West Virginia. These guys are all good receivers, but they're not. Well, who looks really good, by the way, who I think is an absolute day 3 wide receiver steal, is Arkansas's 6'5" receiver, Matt Landers. Go watch Matt Landers from Arkansas. He ran 4.37. He's 6'5", about 195 pounds. Went to St. Petersburg High School. And then I think did he start off at Toledo and then transferred? Oh, he started at Georgia. That's what it was. He started off as a he was a 3-star prospect out of high school, went to Georgia, didn't play at Georgia, and then transferred to Arkansas and is now, 6'5", a little bit under 200 pounds, but he wore number 3. If you watch this kid, Matt Landers, going to be a day 3 pick in the draft. Or maybe even undrafted. I mean, they list him on the list here at number 286 overall. They list him as the 27th best wide receiver in the class. There's a very good chance based on this ranking that he goes undrafted, but that's going to be a steal. Matt Landers from Arkansas is going to be a steal at wide receiver. Day 3 steal. He runs great, got good ball skills. I mean, the stop and start is really good for 6'5". He's just very impressive player. Very impressive player. So remember that name, Matt Landers from Arkansas. Arkansas has been good to the Niners, by the way. You think of Dre Greenlaw. Dre Greenlaw has been spectacular. Michael Alanis says Darnold's stats are skewed by unstable organizations with 5 different offensive coordinators, multiple coaches, different schemes. First time he's been part of a stable organization. Yeah, no question. I expect Darnold to be good. I really do. Why? Because he's desperate. He had a little bit of this USC I'm too cool for school thing going, and I don't know that he worked the way he should have worked. And then he was on some bad teams. You're right about the offensive coordinators. He's also had 4 different head coaches. He's been on some bad football teams. In this situation, he understands this is probably his last bite at the apple, his last chance at the NFL at a starting gig. And he's got to be thrilled because Kyle clearly believes in him. And look at the Niner weapons. The Niners have tremendous weapons, and he's got a head coach that believes in his ability as a quarterback. And now whatever Sam Darnold's got, whatever potential he's got in his body and whatever he can do, he's going to get his opportunity here. He's probably going to take advantage of it. Ken Mueller says, Larry, do you believe Brock Purdy will regress? To me, it's all about the elbow. If the elbow is not the same, yeah, he'll regress because he only had requisite arm strength. And if he loses arm strength or touch or accuracy, if he loses touch or accuracy or any kind of zip on the ball, yeah, he could go from being a good NFL quarterback or maybe even a borderline excellent NFL quarterback potentially to not an NFL quarterback based on if he loses zip on his passes or accuracy or touch. So yeah, this is, and that injury was freakish. He literally was accelerating his elbow and he had it ripped going the other way. I'm sure they got a great surgeon. I'm sure they absolutely sure they're taking all the precautions, but you just never know. But barring that, okay, if the surgery went well and he can rehab from the elbow, not only will he not regress, he will significantly improve. Because you got to remember this, the biggest improvement any player has in the NFL is year 1 to year 2. He already showed somewhat mastery of Kyle's offense, which is incredibly rare to see as a rookie. So now if you give him a whole nother year to learn the system and have some reps with his receivers and, go through the playbook with a fine tooth comb and be able to kind of mentally digest every play. Now he's run many of those plays. Yeah, I think you're going to see a guy who's smarter, better, more sudden, stronger body, stronger legs, more explosive, just because almost everybody is that. Almost everybody from year 1 to year 2 improves their athleticism. I mean, look at Tom Brady. Tom Brady was clearly a better athlete after 5 years in the league than he was when he came out of Michigan. Because at Michigan, he's eating dorm food or, apartment living and, you're not working out the way you should. You're not sleeping or eating or doing any of the things that the pros do. At the pro level, they're mastering every aspect of diet, nutrition, rest, recovery. You're not just lifting. You've got you've got help and you've got a schedule and you've got specialists and people who know what they're doing. And then you're doing band work. You're not just doing, lifting with a buddy at some body mechanic gym or something. You're training like a pro and you're not going to class. So you're not even a part-time student. You're a full-time football player. And this is the first time in your life you're a full-time football player. So the guys who are really hardworking and conscientious, yeah, they improve. So I would expect he will improve. But the big question is the elbow. Where is the elbow? How did he recover from it? That's going to determine tons. DeLeon Ross Jenkins says, great show, fellas. This is Larry's best show by far. Thank you. Appreciate that. Archer says, I think Larry in Vicious show last night was by far his best. The dude absolutely lights people who trash Brock up, and it was epic. No, I don't, I'm not trying to light anybody up. I just, this idea that, Brock played and he was, 6-0, 7-0, whatever he was. And then he got hurt in the Philly game and they lost. It's not like that's just like nothing. Like, yeah, but anybody. No, it's not. And it wasn't set up for him to win. I mean, I was at the Miami game on the binoculars when he came off the bench, and Miami brought, they brought the house. They brought that Van Ginkel character on like about 17 blitzes. And they just said, you know what? We're going after Brock Purdy. Young kid in his first NFL start. We are going after him. And they did. And they brought the house. And he stood in and made plays. So once I saw that, I was like, wow, they got something here. And when I went back into the Niner locker room on, I guess, Wednesday of that week, maybe Tuesday of that week, there wasn't one guy who was like, we lost Jimmy. Damn it. Season's over. Not one. There was not one person that was like, we're kind of screwed. Nope. That's how fast Brock Purdy won them over. He won over his teammates with how he played in that game and how he stood in against that rush. The play that stands out the most is the one where he stood in on that in cutter to Kittle, took a hit in the face mask to face mask, and delivered a blind strike and put it right on Kittle's hands. That was like, what? You got to be kidding me. Nobody does that. Jimmy wasn't doing that. So, that to me, that was impressive. And then to listen, if you get a chance, go read that article on one of the Niner sites about D'Amico Ryans complimenting Brock Purdy. Basically said he had the it factor, and that once the defensive players saw that he was a playmaker and was really making some special plays, that they started to really believe in him. And you know what? That was a room that was very committed to Jimmy and very committed to Trey Lance. And to walk into the room as a the Mr. Irrelevant last pick in the draft, and to win those guys over in like one, 3 quarters of football against Miami. That tells you a lot. Sherpagny, I've seen Larry been giddy and smiling since the Trey Lance situation came on. I'm not sure what the situation is. What is the situation? John Lynch is talking like he's going to trade him. Kyle Shanahan's talking like he's going to trade him. Jed York says that he believes in him, but didn't say he wouldn't be traded. Almost nobody is really celebrating Trey's talent. I'm not rooting for my prediction to be right, but I did tell you at the end of the year that I thought he would be traded. So I'm just now kind of, it's now bubbling to the surface that there are indications that it seems like he may be traded. And Matt Barrows doesn't agree, and Jack Hammer doesn't agree, and many of you don't agree. So there you go. Maybe I'm right and he'll be traded on draft day. Maybe I'm wrong and he won't be. Time will tell. But I'm not rooting for the trade because I know how good a prospect he is. I'd only be excited about a trade if what they got in return was exciting. If they get some mid-round pick in return, why do it? Why move him? He's on a rookie contract. Who cares? If he plays, he plays. If he's not good enough to play, he doesn't play. But the only thing that's exciting about Trey's situation is if you could turn Trey Lance into a great football player that could help you win a Super Bowl right now. Third String All Pro says $20 says Richardson can't throw a 10-yard crossing route with touch. Well, there might be something to that, but I'll say this. If he's first and goal from the 5, I don't know that there's a defense anywhere that could stop him. He's Anthony Richardson skill set. It's crazy. He has a skill set that nobody has ever had. I mean, literally, he's 6'4". He's 244 pounds. All right. Um, his workout numbers were absolutely incredible at that size. He's got a absolute gun for an arm. You can see that if you watch the Gators. And then he runs like a running back. So you're going to hit him. So what? He's bouncing off that. I just think if you needed to score a touchdown and you got first and goal on the 5 and you have Anthony Richardson, I don't know that he can be stopped. I mean, he could literally just run it in. He's that good of a runner. And he's 6'4", 245 with a gun. So he might be the best thrower and the best runner in this class. Think about that for a second. How many guys can you say that about? Fish and Chips said, it's not about arm strength. My coach used to say to me all the time, it's about what you do on the hash marks. It's about being on time. It's about being on time with the football. And you know what? If you noticed, the one thing that Jimmy did all the time, he threw a lot of in-breaking routes, but he got his receivers crushed pretty consistently. The one thing Brock Purdy has done at a really, really high level, and it's won over guys like Kittle and Ayuk, is he knows where to throw the inside pass so that the receiver doesn't get detonated. So the receiver doesn't just get blown up by some DB or linebacker. He does not throw it right at the mesh point, where the coverage is. He'll either throw it ahead of the coverage in that window, or he'll wait till the receiver clears the window and he'll throw it into the next window when the defender is now chasing the play from behind. It's a very veteran-like move, and Purdy does it. He makes it look pretty easy. So to me, it's the smarts of Purdy, but it's the accuracy and the timing and all the things that come from having, played a lot, and he's seen a lot. He can process a lot. You're not going to fool him. And then if he's got to go to the short, if he's got to audible to the short game, his footwork is incredible. The timing, the technique. I mean, he's got it all down. He's got it all down. He looks like a guy who's played a lot of football. Val Ramos, Larry, what quarterback do you want, I guess, the Niners to draft? It's interesting. There's some special traits to Jake Haener. Like, I watched a lot of Fresno State. The workouts do not do that kid justice. The all-star games don't do him justice. He's a playmaker, but he is only 6 feet. He does throw the ball well, but he is 6 feet, 207. And he might be a little shorter than Brock. I like Haener. I like the athletic ability of Jaron Hall. I like the experience of Dorian Thompson-Robinson. I like the total package of Clayton Tune from Houston. And I can see why people would love Tanner McKee, because Tanner McKee is really accurate. He's 6'6", 230 with a tremendous arm. And he's very, very accurate. Now, Matt Barrows said Aiden O'Connell. I've heard people suggest Aiden O'Connell might not be a bad quarterback for the Niners. I kind of like what I saw athletically out of Malik Cunningham. I loved what I've seen from Stetson Bennett in the SEC and at the Combine. Max Duggan had a tremendous year for TCU. I guess if I had to pick one of these guys, I mean, they're all a little different, right? Do you need a mobile guy, or do you want a pocket guy? I mean, Tanner McKee, if he was there at the end of the third round, pretty good quarterback as far as, he might be, he's got a little bit of Joe Flacco in him. He's 6'6" with a tremendous arm. He doesn't move all that well. He's a pocket passer solely, but still 6'6", 6'6", 230, and he just throws lasers, and he's very, very accurate. Couple other ones on the chat before we get out of here. We've got Antonio Sosa says, agree on the Braden Willis. He said, might be a Jordan Reed type of player if he reaches his potential. Definitely a day 3 pick. No question. We got a super chat from Michael. He says, finally, Larry, Justin Shorter, Florida, Antoine Green, North Carolina, wide receivers that people are sleeping on. I'll check them out. I'll absolutely check them out. I haven't seen them yet. You can't see everybody. I mean, that's the thing. And there's so many guys. Gregus Khan says, love Mingo. Yeah. Jonathan Mingo from Ole Miss. Really nice receiver, about 225 pounds. G-Code Travels Vlog POV. Larry waving from Hong Kong. What if Trey goes 3-0? Then Trey stays in. That's really it. MF says, heard Farhan's interview with Tolbert after the game. What a joke. I need more than that. What exactly about it made it a joke? MF, let me know. I'd love to hear why it was a joke. MF says he loves when Ned comes on. And Matt Barrows, for that matter, he says. Yeah, I'd love to know what exactly Farhan said. But yeah, I mean, it's just, what are you going to say? I mean, I don't even know what would Farhan even say. I mean, the first question that I would ask Farhan is, Gabe has said that this is the most talented team he's ever had. Do you agree with that? Come on. I mean, I would definitely like to know what Gabe was seeing there. What exactly, why would Gabe say that a team that does not have Buster Posey is better than the team that had Buster Posey? What? MF says, is Matt Beatty the next Papirski? Matt Beatty's a decent left-handed hitter against right-handed pitching. But I mean, once again, they're talking about everyday guys, and it's like they talk about wanting to have everyday baseball players, but then they acquire nothing but guys who are platoon guys. Matt Beatty he doesn't play against lefties. He's a platoon outfielder who does all of his damage as a left-handed hitter against right-handed pitching. So you've been telling everybody that you want to have 4 or 5 everyday guys. Kapler at one point this spring said he felt like they had 4 or 5 regular guys, everyday guys, non-platoon players. But look at first base. Who's your everyday first baseman? Looks like a platoon. Maybe Tyro's the everyday second baseman. Crawford's probably too old to be the everyday shortstop. Looks like they're going to share time at third. None of those outfielders, maybe Conforto, could be an everyday guy. And then you're platooning your catchers. So where's 4 or 5 everyday guys? I'm not seeing that. I see really maybe 2 everyday guys. And that would be Tyro, I guess, and Crawford. Those would probably be my everyday guys. Maybe 3 if you want to throw Conforto. But the rest of the team is platoon. So it's so strange that they just seem like really intent on they don't want to be, they've been raked over the coals, I think, in the social media world for platooning. But then Kapler and Kapler likes I've got this lineup against lefties, this lineup against righties. They really love kind of mixing and matching and showing that they can kind of do that. That I almost think it's like against their philosophy to go with everyday guys. But that's why I was kind of pushing for Casey Schmidt, because I thought, man, Casey Schmidt could be an everyday guy at third base. Archer says Krueger said 1,000 times how afraid he is to trade Trey, yet people still think he's rooting for him to be traded. Shaking my head. Yeah, it's amazing. I have brought up trade Trey thing a lot because I think that's what I'm hearing from the 49ers. When John Lynch says, I mean, do we need to review this? We can review it one more time. When John Lynch came out and said, man, Trey's got to play, but that's our challenge because we got a team that's ready to go. That sounds to me like, we want to play Trey, but he's not really ready to play and we're ready to go. So that sounds to me like they wanted to trade him. Then when Lynch said, Trey, we like Trey on our team right now, that the right now seems to suggest that maybe they're going to trade him. Then Shanahan came out and basically admitted the other day that they're going to listen to offers. They like their quarterbacks, but they'll listen to offers, and anybody could be traded. Well, they just picked up Darnold. He just told us that Brock Purdy's their number one guy. So it doesn't take a genius to see that if you're going to trade a quarterback and you're going to listen to offers, you're listening to offers for Trey. So that's number 3. And then Jed comes out and says, that he thinks Trey still has a chance to be great. But that's non-committal as far as whether or not he's going to be here. Not one of the 3 of them came out and said, man, Trey is going to be here. Trey is not going anywhere. Trey is likely to be our number one guy. He's going to have an extended run with us. We can't wait to see it. Man, when you guys see him out there, you're really going to be impressed. None of that. The only thing they said positively about Trey is that he's a great kid and that they love him as a salt of the earth person. But where's discussion about the way he throws? Where's the discussion about the way he processes? Where's the compliments on his athleticism? They can do it. We just heard Kyle Shanahan say that he's always been a big fan of Sam Darnold and that he's always been a big fan of the way Sam Darnold throws. He's never said that about Trey. Why not? You just traded up in the draft for him. Why wouldn't you love him? And if he's on your team and he's going to play, why wouldn't you build him up? It's very weird. Very weird. So I'm on record as predicting that they're going to trade Trey because I think that's the tea leaves that I'm reading. I think other people either don't want to read those tea leaves or aren't reading them the same way, or maybe they're right and I'm just wrong. I'll fully admit I could be wrong. I absolutely could be wrong. This guy's J.R. Garcia, lame ass title for the video. Larry already wants to trade Trey. What the fuck? Brock might not be the same thrower after the injury. The reason I entitled this, how much money, first of all, I didn't put money. I don't know why we have money sign there. How much can the Niners get for Trey Lance was because Matt Barrows was the guest. And in Matt Barrows' mailbag, he asked the question, what could the 49ers ultimately get for Trey Lance? That's why it's entitled what it's entitled. We got this one from Elias _22. I've heard Larry say this a million times. They can't hit. Talking, of course, about the Giants. Yes, they can't hit. And it's hilarious. I'm listening to Marty Lurie, and I love Marty, but Marty at this point is just a totally broken record. He's like, well, if they pitch and they stay healthy, they'll be fine. What? They cannot hit, Marty. They have no offense. I'm not sure what you're watching, but they have no offense. Look at the Giants lineup. And then you're going to tell me that if they stay healthy and they pitch, they're going to be good. So did they pitch today? I thought Logan Webb looked pretty good. What did he strike out? 12? I mean, Logan Webb pitched pretty well. But they lost because they didn't score. And the first baseman, Lamont Wade, cannot hit. Crawford, bat is not what it used to be. VR has 50 games in the big leagues and hit 125 this spring. The catcher, Roberto Perez, started over Joey Bart because the Giants have no confidence in Joey Bart. Your center fielder is Mike Yastrzemski. He hit 214 last year. He hit like 115 in spring training. And the year before that, he hit 221. You don't have, I mean, maybe Haniger's healthy, hopefully. Hopefully Peterson stays healthy. Hopefully Conforto stays healthy. But I mean, Conforto didn't play at all last year. Peterson doesn't look like he's in particularly good shape to me. Haniger is already on the injured list. I mean, they don't hit. They cannot hit. So this idea that if they pitch and they play defense, first of all, they just got rid of Longoria and Belt. The guys they replaced him with are not as good of fielders. And the same defense they had up the middle last year that they said they wanted to get younger and more athletic and better, it's the exact same guys, just a year older. So there's no real logical reason they should be better on defense, and they're not better on offense. So, and then you lost Carlos Rodon and replaced him with Sean Manaea and Ross Stripling. Is that an upgrade? Maybe depth wise, but they don't have a pitcher. They didn't get a pitcher that's as good as Rodon coming back. I don't know, man. I don't see it. I don't see it. I'm not seeing the giant optimism. I want to be optimistic. Do you think I want to crap on them on opening day, knowing there's 6 months of baseball to analyze and talk about? No, but this has been a nightmarish off season, and Farhan, I don't know. I can't really say. I mean, what's Farhan's greatest move? Has he drafted and developed anybody that's done anything? Has he traded for anybody that's done anything? Has he signed anybody that's done anything? I mean, he had a nice little signing last year of Rodon. The year before, he had a nice little signing of Gosman. He's hit on a couple of understated pickups, but nothing crazy. Nothing. I mean, nothing that they have no. Like, what's their base right now? Who's the foundation of the team? So I don't know, man. I mean, I want to be positive, but come on. MF says nothing against Farhan's interviews on KMBR. He's a good guy. I'm just a fan frustrated with the product. Yeah. Yeah, because the product's bad. And they were bad and boring last year. They finished 500, but it was an amazing save to get there. Antonio Sosa, thanks, Larry. Good stuff as always. Green Glass Full says, thanks, Larry. Great show. Got this one from Sherpagny. Larry, if they trade Trey, I hope he wins the Super Bowl and the Niners never win anything again. Wow. You're that wed to Trey. Gammon Brown says, the Krueger Show. Have a great night. Awesome show. Thank you, Gammon. I'm sorry I didn't read your super chat when Matt was there. Paul Perriman, I agree with Larry on a lot of stuff, but this trade thing is very unlikely. All right. All right. If I'm wrong and the draft comes and goes and Trey does not get traded, I'll stand corrected. But if the draft shows up and he is traded, I think there's an awful lot of people in this chat that probably should come back and apologize. Steve says Trey was the same player from year 1 to year 2. He didn't seem to progress at all. Steve, I think that's fair. I was expecting significant growth and accuracy and, touch, feel, and I didn't see it. But it's hard to say, you know what I mean? Because he got hurt so fast that it's hard to say whether it was there or not. But I'm a believer in that kid's ethics, that kid's, capacity, physical capacity, mental capacity. I think he's going to get there. And he probably did improve quite a bit from year 1 to year 2, or, that first go round to the second go round, I guess is year 2 to year 3. But we didn't see him play long enough to really know. Rob says, Larry's already called this. May well be another Wiseman situation with Trey. Good idea to trade him. Probably not. May still happen. Yeah. I do not want him traded because I fear that they're going to get nothing in return, especially when I ask guys like Matt Barrows and he's like, yeah, maybe a day 3 pick. I wouldn't. Why would you trade Trey Lance for a day 3 pick when you went through 4 quarterbacks last year and your starting quarterback is not healthy? You wouldn't. The only way you would trade Trey Lance is if you don't believe he can play, or if there's a player in the draft that you just love. And who knows? That may be the situation. They may love Tanner McKee. They may love this kid Bonner from Utah State. They may love one of these quarterbacks and think that they're going to be super special. We don't know, you know. But I think that's what it would take before they would seriously move on from Trey. Giants Niner fan says Farhan did Brett Wisely, and Bryce Johnson dirty the last minute. Cold, man. So now I don't know the particulars on this. They sent Bryce Johnson out, which is a little dirty considering guy had an awesome spring and you did it to trade for Matt Beatty. So is Matt Beatty like worlds better than Bryce Johnson? I mean, I don't know. Beatty's probably a better hitter, but Johnson's definitely a better base runner, probably a better fielder. I don't know. That was very bizarre, especially after Johnson had a really good spring. But they've done these weird things. The whole Michael Reed and Connor Joe, I think they did that at the end of camp. That was kind of bizarre. The Wisely one's weirder because from what I read, now tell me if I'm wrong on this. I had read that Wisely's family was on their way to New York and that they were going to be there for his major league debut. And then at the last minute, he got farmed out. But then in the middle of the game, I saw Wisely go into center field as a defensive replacement. So what gives? What happened? I thought he was, and then did his family, were they at the game? Were they not? Hopefully they were still at the game if he indeed made his major league debut. But if by chance they were going to New York and then they told the family, hey, you know what? He's going to the minors, and then they didn't go to New York, and then they kept him on the roster and he made his debut, then that is weak. And that's really weak. And they probably should apologize. Paul Perriman says, no matter what you think about Trey, Darnold is in the first year under Shanahan and Purdy is hurt. You don't trade Trey at a low value when he's much more valuable to the 49ers at this point. The only thing I'll say, Paul, is that we don't know how the 49ers actually feel. We know what they've said, but they really, that's also makes me think that they don't love him is they haven't complimented him. And it's not like they can't compliment players. They complimented Darnold. They compliment Purdy. When it comes to Trey, all they do is say what a great person he is. What about his play action footwork? What about his arm? What about his processing? What about his throwing? What about his running? What about nothing? Not one word about Trey other than they love his makeup as a person, which is great. But what about the way he plays quarterback? So we're kind of assuming that they like him, and they may, but they may not. And if they don't, and if they don't believe in him, then they may want to trade him before he gets on the field again. Because if they don't feel like he can play, then the next time he gets on the field, his value will go down. If they think he can play, the next time he gets on the field, his value will go up. So it's like, do you trade Trey now? Not if you believe in him. If you believe in him, you don't trade him now. Like I believe in him. I wouldn't trade him now. But they don't believe in him. My opinion is that they don't believe in him and that they will trade him now. My opinion is that they should believe in him and I wouldn't trade him now. But I think they will. MF says a lot of baseball left. Is that a threat? That almost seems, after today, that seems like it could be a threat. Gammon Brown. It's the charade of Larry going on multiple shows yesterday to drive up business, knowing this is a sore spot for 49er fans is the thing that gets me. I applaud the trolling of fans. I applaud the trolling of fans for clicks. Oh, Gammon Brown. Come on, man. So was Vish going for clicks? Was Jesse going for clicks? Was everybody going for clicks? Or is this a story worth discussing? I mean, that I think is that, yeah, right now it sounds like Gammon, you're like, nothing to see here. You guys are making this all up for clicks. But you know what? I'm not the one, like John Lynch, who went to the combine and said, Trey's got to play, but that's the challenge. We got a team that's ready to go. How am I supposed to read that? Or when John said earlier this week, we like Trey on our team right now. If you like Trey and he was your long-term guy, wouldn't you just say, hey, we love Trey? We love Trey. Instead, we like Trey on our team right now. You don't think that sounds suspicious? What about Kyle Shanahan professing his love for Sam Darnold? Is that suspicious? Or suggesting that they would listen to trade offers for a quarterback this spring? Which quarterback do you think he's referring to there? Sam Darnold, who they just signed? No. Brock Purdy, who they just anointed as their number one guy? No. So when Shanahan said the other day that they were going to listen to trade offers in the spring, is that something that I made up for clicks? And then when Jed York says he's got a chance to be great, but didn't say anything that committed to Trey, all three of the Niner heads, not one of them really made any kind of a commitment to Trey or really complimented Trey as a player. You don't find that a little bit odd? No, it can't be that they might trade Trey. It must be that Larry Krueger is trying to use it for clicks for his YouTube channel. Okay. All right. James Gregory summary. Larry doesn't BS. He tells it like it is no matter what. How many fans' feelings are hurt? Keep it up. Yeah. I mean, I'm not into feelings. Nobody cares about my feelings. I don't care about anybody else's feelings. Screw feelings. I'll be sensitive when I'm talking to my wife. I'll be sensitive when I'm talking to my kids. I'm not going to be sensitive when I'm talking about the horrendous job that Gabe Kapler and Farhan Zaidi have done. I'm not going to be sensitive talking about, these obvious, to me, what seem like obvious indications that the Niners are going to consider trading Trey Lance. But maybe other people are hearing it differently. Clearly they are. Joey says, Tune, DTR, Hainer, or none if you can only get one. Oh, that's tough. I guess I would take Tune. I would take Tune out of that group. I like Clayton Tune. And I'm not going to sit here and say, hey, I've talked to agents. I've got sources. I don't have sources. I don't. No sources. Me reading tea leaves. That's it. That's 100% it. MF says, Larry Bear says the fans should be more loyal and not talk about the product. Well, not talk about the product. All right. I mean, it's a business, they have options. They can, Larry and the Giants are competing for the entertainment dollar of the fans in the market. It's not the fans' obligation to support your business and line your pockets. It's your, the focus is on you. It's not on them. It's on you to entertain them, to inspire them to buy tickets. Are the Giants fans to blame for not buying tickets? Or are you to blame for not building a team that makes them want to buy tickets? I'm going to blame the team. The fans are not to blame. The fans have disposable income and they can choose what they want to do with it. If your team is bad and boring, sorry, buddy. Nobody's going to support you. The Giants season ticket base at one point was close to 30,000 people. From what I'm hearing, it's around 5,000 people now. You've lost 25,000 season ticket holders. You just won 3 World Series as recently as 2014. You won number 3. since 2014. We're not even a decade removed from that yet. You've lost 25,000 season ticket holders. And now you're telling the fans that they need to be more loyal and not talk S about the product? Put a better product on the field. It's not on the fans. It's on you. Own it. Antonio Sosa, Larry, the Trey Lance era might have ended when the Niners kept Jimmy G in the building and didn't start him from the inception. See where I'm leaning with your theory? It's interesting. I think when the 49ers drafted Trey Lance, they were in a different spot. They were closer to going to the Super Bowl themselves. And, but, I think they love the idea of Trey. I think they love the idea of a quarterback on a rookie deal. But were they ever really committed to taking the lumps? I don't think so. And here's the other thing about it. I don't think the fans are either. And I don't think the media is either. I think if we're really being honest about, like, Giants fans are pissed off. But you know what? The Giants won their 3 titles, and there's a lot of summertime baseball. You'll still go out there and sit in the sun, and I'll buy a few tickets. You'll buy a few tickets. We'll all go check it out a little bit. You're not going to be as fired up about it, but it's still summertime, something to do. But when it comes to other sports, it's like people don't just go and support teams for the heck of it. They go when they want to go. And, I think what happened here with the Trey Lance thing is that the Niners like Trey Lance. They wanted Trey Lance to be good, and they don't want to give away a season to develop him, and he needs time to develop. And that means he needs to be able to play through his mistakes. But the fans, if the Niners lose one game, the sky is falling. And it's not just, it's the media, it's guys like us who create content, it's the fans, it's the locker room, it's everybody. The expectations are really, really, really high. And so when's a convenient time to step back and, go 500 or go 9-8 over 17 games and develop Trey? But you're right. I mean, if they had gone to develop Trey early on, maybe he'd be more developed at this point. Instead, they never found the time, and now there's so much pressure to win that I can't picture them taking too many lumps. Now, if Trey hits the ground running and plays great, yeah, then there's no lumps to take. Then it all works out. But if Trey doesn't hit the ground running and struggles a little bit, are they going to keep playing him, or are they going to pull him? I think the reality is, I think we all know it. They're going to pull him. They're absolutely going to pull him. They're not going to ride with him. Antonio Sosa, what if Atlanta or Tennessee calls offering their first round pick for Trey? What would Kyle and John decide? Well, it's funny. I brought this up to Hammer because Hammer said to me, Jack Hammer said, well, he's not going to get traded on draft day. There's a big salary cap, penalty if they trade him. And I understand that. But so are you telling me that if some team, picking in the 20s decides they'd rather have Trey Lance than Hendon Hooker, and they have to get a quarterback, and they're going to offer you that 22nd pick in the draft or whatever for Trey Lance, and the Niners are going to say no, even though maybe they want to make that trade because of cap ramifications? And Jack seemed to indicate that he thought it could be maneuvered around, and Barrows seemed to indicate the same, even though neither had specifics on exactly what the cap ramifications would be if they traded him. But both seemed to indicate they felt like, that they didn't expect the Niners to get that kind of an offer, but that they would probably pull the trigger if they got that kind of an offer. The question I would want to ask John Lynch is, I think we all kind of realize that if somebody calls offering a first round pick, that maybe that the Niners would probably consider moving Trey Lance. The question is, what about a high second? What if somebody calls at pick number 35? You hang up? What about pick 38? What about pick 45? What about pick 50? You see what I'm saying? What if it's a pick in the second round? What if it's a pick at the top of the third round? What if it's multiple picks? What if it's a player in a pick? I mean, are they going to hold on to Trey, or are they going to listen to offers And I think Shanahan has already told us they're going to listen to offers. I think it already sets up. Lynch looks like he's already prepping people for it. Like, I can already see the way this is going to go. If they do trade Trey, it's not going to be because they don't believe in Trey, and it's not because they don't believe in Trey. At least publicly, they're going to come out, hey, we love Trey. We believe in Trey, but we're going with Brock, and we got a great offer. So only they know what offers they're willing to take or not take for Trey Lance. But to me, if you say, what do I think it sounds like? To me, it sounds like they like Trey as a person. They like Trey's long-term potential of becoming a good quarterback, but they're going with Purdy short-term. They may go with 2 quarterbacks on their roster, and those quarterbacks are going to be Purdy, if healthy, and Sam Darnold. So you say, why do I keep going down this road about trading Trey? It's because I think it sets up for a Trey trade. I mean, Shanahan's given you about 9 different indications that this is their thinking, and nobody wants to accept it because it's like, oh my God, no. Oh my God, they can't do it. But see, here's the one thing you're all assuming that they love Trey and that they were committed to Trey. But when you listen to them kind of talk and you listen to Jed specifically talk, I think the commitment was not to Trey, that the commitment was to have a quarterback on a rookie deal so they could re-sign Bosa, re-sign Debo, re-sign Kittle, re-sign Ayuk, build a roster that they wanted to build. Well, they have that now in Brock Purdy. They got the quarterback on the rookie deal. So do they need Trey anymore? Not really. So now it sounds like they're in this mode of like, hey, if you can beat out Sam Darnold, you'll be number 2. If not, you'll be number 3. Oh, yeah, and by the way, we may only go with 2 quarterbacks. Then what? So they just got Sam Darnold, and even though if it was a fair competition, I think Sam Darnold no way beats out Trey Lance. But the reality is they just brought in Sam Darnold. So is Sam Darnold going to get cut and they're going to go with Trey and Brock? Doesn't sound like it. Doesn't seem like it. Kyle Shanahan said, I've always loved this guy. I've always loved the way he throws. So I think Sam's here. And I think Brock's here. And that means I think Trey might not be here. So that's where I'm at. I'm not rooting for it, but I am predicting it. And when it happens, I will say I told you so. No, I won't. No, I probably will. I probably will say I told you so. Because there'll be so many people that have told me that I'm wrong, and so many people that have gotten mad at me for discussing this even, that it's like I almost feel like I have to say I told you so. Almost I have to put the finger, up there against Matt Barrows and Jack Hammer and all these guys and Jesse and everybody else who's Hensley and everybody else who's like, hey, there's no way they're trading him. They love Trey. That's not my read on it at all. I'm seeing I love Darnold. We love Purdy. Trey, you're going to compete with Darnold. We may go with 2 quarterbacks. Trey's on our team right now. Trey needs to play. That's the challenge. Sounds like he's going to get dealt. Giants Niner fan. I watch Larry on all his streams. He's consistent on all his takes. No BS. True to himself. It's his passion. Appreciate that. Rob Reggiardo. And Rob, if I butchered that, I apologize. Larry's lucky anyone is talking. Yeah, thank you. That's probably true. Otherwise, what do we have to talk about? We'd be talking about more about the Giants and maybe a lot more about the Warriors. We talk a lot of Warriors. You got to remember, I come on after Warrior games. I do post-game Giants. I'm not just Niners. There's a lot of just Niner content creators. By the way, I noticed today, because I was looking at all the Niner content creators, and then I'm like, okay, well, I'm going to be coming on after the Giants, and I'm like, I'll start looking up who are the Giant content creators. None. Nobody. I mean, that's another one, man. Nobody is talking about the Giants. I mean, there's like a couple locked on Giants guys. I mean, there's a couple beat writers. There's Kipes Kid and Pavlovich have a pod, and and Brisby and Bags have a pod, and obviously they'll talk about the Giants a little bit on the radio. But as far as Giant content creators that are bringing you interviews and content and all kinds of good Giant stuff, they don't exist. Nobody's doing it. And I don't think they're not doing it because, I think they're doing it because I'm not sure if there's a lot of demand for it, to be completely honest. MF says, while Larry Bear and the Giants ownership shake their heads at the unwatched masses who simply can't appreciate the intricacies of the team roster construction, perhaps they should look in the mirror. Yeah. I don't know everything, but I'll say this, bro, don't blame the fans. It's never the fans' problem. It's never the fans' fault. Blaming the fans is your quickest way to having no fans. Don't blame the fans. It's not the fans' fault that they don't appreciate the genius of your roster construction. Your roster construction was a tire fire. And that's where you're at right now. You're in the midst of a tire fire. And it's 6 months of this. And your manager's telling the NBC Sports Bay Area person to back up. And I mean, it's going to get ugly, man. It is going to get ugly. Because, at the end of the day, people will show up for opening day. But, man, it'll be a ghost town. If they play the first homestand and they're garbage and they're scoring no runs, and be a ghost town, be an absolute ghost town. Ninja Beard 01, Larry, then they should have drafted Kyle Pitts instead of Trey. Wow. Could you imagine how good Kyle Pitts or Jamar Chase would look in a Niner uniform right now? Wow. Yeah. But I mean, they wanted to go quarterback. And they felt like they needed to have the rookie quarterback. And they didn't know they were going to draft Brock Purdy. They didn't even know that Brock Purdy existed at that point. Jose Pepe says, I don't like the idea to trade Trey, but we have a team built to win now. And that's what we all want, to win now. If there's any, like people say, oh, you're excited to trade Trey. The only thing that would make me excited is if the Niners use Trey to get a piece to the puzzle that made them the Super Bowl team. Michael Mayer, I threw out a couple weeks ago from Notre Dame, who I think is a spectacular tight end. But it could be a defensive end. It could be a shutdown corner. That kid Banks, the Deontay Banks, I think his name is, from Maryland. He looks like a total shutdown corner. Yeah, if they added a significant piece to the puzzle by trading Trey, then I would be happy. But even then, I'd still be nervous because I think Trey's going to be good on the back end. Paul Perriman says Kapler is going to see how Giants fans can show love that he'll never get. I don't know. There's a lot of, come on. We're all rooting for Cap. We're all rooting for the Giants. That's all I'll say about it. I hope they win. Everybody does better when they win. Paul Perriman, you should update the thumbnail of Barrows. He looks like an alien on the sun. Okay. I will. Noted. Val Ramos says DTR would beat out Sam Darnold. Yeah. I think you're probably right. Paul Perriman says Ken Martin says Paul Perriman only makes sense since they tell how hard to catch on to the playbook, but Shanny would trade the only quarterback they know that knows the plays for Sam and a rookie quarterback. Okay, I hear you. Yeah, trading Trey only makes sense is if you love Darnold, you think Purdy's healthy, and there's a quarterback in the draft that you love. Otherwise, it really doesn't make any sense to trade him now. The third part of this, and I said it at the time when Lynch was talking at the Combine, I said, it really sounds like they're going to trade Trey, but I don't think I would do it until either I signed a top-tier quarterback, a quarterback that could replace Trey, or had somebody in the draft. Well, they signed Darnold. I don't know if he's there to replace Trey, but if they found a quarterback in the draft they really liked, then they've got then they've got 4 quarterbacks and maybe only keeping 2. And then it sounds like it really comes down to Does Trey beat out Darnold? Does Darnold beat out Trey? One or the other won't be with the team. One more from Paul. He says, there's a chance, Larry, but the odds are against it. The reality is much stronger than deciphering the meaning behind the 3 in charge with the 49ers. Well, you know what? Here's the bottom line on these things. As far as I'm concerned, when there was this much dialogue about the quarterback, you got to have a take. You got to have an angle. You got to have a belief one way or another. So to me, your take's got to be either that Trey's the future, Brock's the future, or, I mean, they're not going to both be here long term. So, which guy's going to be it? And to me, I said it was Purdy. Then Lynch said it was Purdy. Then Shanahan said it was Purdy. Then Jed said it was Purdy. It's Purdy. Now it's a matter of what are they going to do if Purdy's not healthy? They're going to go with the other guys. But what are they going to do if Purdy is healthy? And in that situation, I think they're going to move off of Trey. Jay Mills says, I'd rather have Jacob Eason on this roster than Trey Lance. That was weird last year. They had Jacob Eason. They cut him for Josh Johnson and didn't really get that. And now Eason is in camp. He's on somebody's off-season roster. Jose Pepe, you got a good reading, Larry. No BS and objective. I'm trying, man. I'm trying. 187 said, been hearing about Trey like he's a G and he's butt. Give him time. Trey is going to be a really, really good quarterback, folks. But it may not be on the Niners timeline. Jay Mill, only 161 more games, Lair. Yeah, seriously. That was the when people say, hey, it's only one game. Yeah, that's the downside. It's only one game. Luckily, they're off tomorrow. We can regroup before the weekend. Isn't that weird, by the way? You play on Thursday, you're off on Friday. I mean, somehow the commissioner of baseball decided that it was in everybody's best interest to have opening day and then have the Yankees and Giants just sit in New York and have an off day. I mean, I think Manfred doesn't understand baseball fans, and I think he's a terrible commissioner. Joe E says Michael Mayer and George Kittle that would be like Hernandez and Gronk. Yeah, minus the murder. Minus the incarceration. But yeah, 2 great tight ends on one team. Could you imagine the Niners 2 tight end set if they had Michael Mayer and Kittle? See, that's what's so intriguing to me. Michael Mayer, if the Niners could get the 22nd pick in the draft, they might be able to get Michael Mayer. Michael Mayer, in my opinion, is a Kelsey. He's a Kittle. He's a Gronk. He's a Pro Bowl caliber tight end. If you could add a Pro Bowl caliber tight end who was an awesome red zone threat for Trey Lance, and you had Brock Purdy, Sam Darnold, and a rookie quarterback, you're telling me you wouldn't do that? You're telling me that you'd rather have Trey sitting on the bench than have a Michael Mayer type player in your offense? See, that's when I'm thinking about all these factors, I'm thinking not only, would the trading Trey makes me nervous, but if you could get a great player who could really impact your team, that might be enough to push you over the top. That might be enough to win you the Super Bowl. Jose Pepe, Larry, you should be at the radio, man. Guru needs help. Tired of hearing dumb questions to get a player perspective on their game, but you are the right guy, Larry. Well, I'll be on there, I believe, the week of the 10th. I'm sitting in for dibs. So catch me with Mark Willard in Afternoon Drive on 95.7 The Game. Guys over there, good guys. Guru's one of my favorite. Jay Mill says, yeah, I work from home, but my associates are all around the world. So to get anything done, I end up having to work overnight. Ouch. Sometimes your best work gets done overnight. Michael says, Larry, my brother's girlfriend won an all-inclusive Giants experience for $20 this spring sitting behind home plate. I was invited and was wondering if I even should go. Free food and drinks all night. Oh, hell yeah. Absolutely go. You'll have a good time. You may not see any offense, but you'll have a good time. just look at it this way. If they don't score any runs, maybe have a couple more drinks. It'll seem like they had a couple more. They'll seem like they scored more runs. Fish and Chips is Michael Mayer, the tight end from Notre Dame, will go in the first round. He will go in the first round, but there was talk that he was going top 10. Then he went to the workout, the Notre Dame workout. Didn't work out particularly well, but he's still 6'4", 250, great hands. I watched so much college football. Every game that I watched that kid play in, he dominated. He's a monster player. Michael Mayer is one of the most sure thing draft prospects in this entire draft. Now, Edgardo says, Larry, how about the tight end Darnell Washington from Georgia? Yeah, Darnell Washington is, now his production wasn't quite the same as Mayer, but his size, speed, athleticism, it's all freaky. I mean, 6'6", 6'7", as you say, 270, kind of ripped. So, Darnell Washington, he made a one-handed catch at the combine. That was one of the greatest catches I've ever seen a tight end make. He just plucked it out of the air with his hands, the nose of the football, and caught it in his bare hand. Now, granted, it wasn't his bare hand. He had gloves on. Those tacky gloves they use definitely help them catch, but still, great play. Celts Chronicles, Larry's like, we're headed for the door 1 hour later. LOL. Love it. Yeah, I know. Seriously. We've been going and going and going and going and going. All right. Cause the thing is, I want to read all these chats and I love, one of my favorite things to do, as far as a media person is to rap with you guys, the fans. I like talking to the fans. I always like taking phone calls. So that's what I'm about. I like talking to the fans. I like taking phone calls. I like reading the chats. I like that part of it the most. So a lot of times when the chat's good and people are throwing some good comments in there, I just kind of keep it rolling. But we are going to bolt for the door. That's going to do it for us tonight. Tomorrow, Vish Kumaran is going to stop by on the Krueger Show. So Vish is here tomorrow. Let me just double check everything for tomorrow. But yeah, Vish joins us tomorrow. Where is the schedule? Let's see here. Yeah, here it is. So, tomorrow Vish is going to join us in the late afternoon. Also, tomorrow night after Warriors Spurs, we'll go live. We'll do a Warrior post game with Cyrus Satsis and hopefully Frank Red and some of the boys. And then Sunday at 9:30 in the morning, I'll be on with Ryan Hensley. We're going to do a lot more videos. We should mention to everybody, hit like and subscribe. That supports the channel and helps the channel. If you hit subscribe, that will just help. If you hit like, that helps the algorithm. More people find us. If you hit subscribe every time we go live, you'll get a little update on your phone just telling you that sure enough, we are going live. And where are we on the subscribers? I believe we are sitting right now at 15,885. 15,885. So if you're in the chat and you've yet to hit like and subscribe, please do. We appreciate everybody joining on to the Krueger Show. And we appreciate every single one of you. Thanks to all of our sponsors. Thanks to everybody in the chat. The Giants, what can we say? They're off tomorrow. They'll try again on Saturday. It's Clark Schmidt against Alex Cobb, game 2 from Yankee Stadium. And, we'll probably come on Saturday after the Giants game and talk a little bit on Saturday as well. So that's coming up this weekend. And then, we've got, hopefully the rain holds off. I'd like to see I've got 2 boys who play baseball. One's 13, one's a junior in high school. And I would love to be able to just watch them play ball on this Saturday. But we've had so much freaking rain here in Northern California. It's a ridiculous amount of rain. So hopefully that holds off and we get rid of the rain. But But hopefully I'll get a chance to watch my kids play a little baseball this weekend. And until tomorrow, have a great night, everybody. Thanks for supporting the Krug Show.
Yeah, never met a man I've been scared of. Careful, you gon' get exactly what you asked for. Here for whatever you bring me, getting handled. I answer to no one, I don't need to hassle.